Okay, let me explain what happened. If you go to this website I have, and you go to the very last thing on the top here, I have two uh, additional pages. Now, I've been really trying. I promised myself I'm not going to make any videos except on the theory on uh, on my book. But screw it, I have to make some more. And I have one class on renewable energy, and I'll go through how I do this, and another class on modeling. And now I'm going to explain why I'm violating my kind of rule. I couldn't make a video last week because I was teaching a class, and I wasn't teaching it for myself. And I'm kind of a stupid idiot for doing this. This outfit, and I'm going to be just, I don't give a crap anymore because this outfit charged 1,200 pounds per person. They had 25 people on some stupid Zoom class. And I really tried to keep it very structured. And I tried to be very, very careful about making exercises. So I started with the little generic macros. I talked about some theory about Nicholas Taleb saying that things were better in the old days. I even showed some ancient history on how we used to make models with real spreadsheets. I talked about monster models and being creative. I talked about my theory of control and square bracket and F5. And then, okay, I even put my book in there. And then I said, okay, we're going to show you how a fast modeling standard works. And then I'm going to show you what you want to do with a model. And in this file, I suppose I won't open it now, this has got kind of a completed model. And in a completed model, I just use a solar model. Here's what I'm trying to show you. Maybe I'm speaking too fast, but basically you want to make a little scenarios. I put a drop down box. So what are you going to yell at me about that? I put a drop down box and I have a scenario where we size debt based on P90, P99, or debt to capital. We size debt in different uh, 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 input C pages, different columns. Once we size the debt, you copy that debt to a fixed value and you copy the repayments. You establish the repayments and then you go back and do credit analysis. You do credit analysis from that and you can present a pretty good scenario. And then somebody, this is why I'm doing this video. Somebody said, and then what I did is I said, okay, we're going to go back. Sorry, I'm showing you another video on this website. We're going to go back and we're going to go through step by step. We're going to make a timeline. We're going to make a operations where we go through some levelized cost analysis. We're going to go through, we're going to go through some we're not going to do that one. Excuse me. Maybe that's why somebody complained. I'll talk about that. We're going to go through some issues with funding the construction. Okay. And then we're going to go through a cash flow waterfall with some cash sweeps, some cash traps, a default, and a DSRA account if you want to do it. And we'll show you how to illustrate the risk analysis when it's a very simple little example, but you put the debt structuring and the sculpting at the top. You leave that sculpting there. That's why we have a little pattern here. And then you say, no, the real cash flow is going to be different because we have different kinds of Monte Carlo simulations. I don't believe in Monte Carlo simulations in real models ever, but it's a very nice way to illustrate the mechanics and efficacy of putting these things in. And then I go through all these complexities with sculpting and multiple sculpting and two different debt issues. And we have, and then just a minute, we go through some tax issues and then finally put all of this kind of put all this stuff together so you can get your scenarios built out. Now, the reason I'm complaining, okay, I made a couple of thousand US. I'm telling you this shit. I shouldn't tell you, okay? And then 1 out of 25 people complained and they said, oh, I wish you would have started with a blank spreadsheet. And so this lady calls and said, oh no, somebody complained. We're not going to pay you. We're not going to do anything. Why am I wasting my time? I had to get up 3 and start teaching at 3 in the morning for this, 3:30 in the morning, okay? That's what I had to do, 2 8-hour sessions. And then I get to listen to this. It's just not worth it. I'd much rather do this stuff myself. I'm going to have I can't wait to send an email saying, screw you. I'm not going to work for you anymore. But for the students, because these people did not, they did not make a video recording. I'm going to make a video recording myself. I'm just a rebel. I'm just an asshole. Sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Okay, where am I? I'm not drunk right now, by the way, or anything like that. Okay, I'm going to start going through the first exercise, and I'm going to show you how I set up this exercise, and I'm going to put these little videos somewhere on this sheet. And for each one, I have a completed set and a starting set. And the first thing I do is I go through some of the things that I really find difficult in modeling. And so some people might say, oh, you can't do this. We're going to keep it basic. Look, you can watch this and you can get the basic ideas. And then I'm going to work through the equations and I'm going to try to focus on these timing equations. And the timing equations the difficulty comes from the fact that when you set up the models, everything in project finance, if you go back to my theory and my book and everything like that, I tried to go crazy and say that corporate finance at terminal value, accounting just leads you nowhere, and trying to compute the weighted average cost of capital and multiples, it just leads you absolutely, it's just incredibly frustrating. If you knew a corporation was just a portfolio of projects and you knew the project IRR and all those projects, you could really come up with some interesting valuations and some interesting thoughts. Sorry, and I got yelled at for talking about theory too much. I'm sorry to include this. So we make our model, we gear our model around financing in project finance, and that's for a real reason. The reason is the people at the banks, the bankers, they tell you they're going to put about 80% of the money into your project. That's a big deal. They're independent. They're from outside your project. So you got a stamp of approval from some financer who's going to tell you about the risks of the project, the cost of capital for the project, and fundamentally if your project is viable. So you have to structure your timing around the financing. Now the problem is the financing may be quarterly, maybe semi-annually after you repay the debt, but during that crucial construction period, it's going to be monthly. How do you make a model that has both monthly cash flows at some part and then switches to semi-annual? That's one way to do it, and making it really flexible. My friend Kenny, he really is my friend. I like having a beer with him. F, flexible. A, accurate. And he says appropriate. S, structured. Really important. No. T, transparent. The most important. Overly structuring can be a dangerous, horrible thing to do. Okay? It should be structured, of course, but having it overly structured. So you could have monthly followed by semi-annual. Okay? One way to do it. And how do we make it smooth? How do we make these timelines really work? It's not that easy. We're going to set up a really simple case, show you how it works, and go through it. Now, there are 2 ways to do this. One is to leave the whole thing monthly and then use a sum if, not an offset, please, not an offset. Use a sum if to accumulate every 6 months of the repayments. And again, we might have a delay in construction and all that. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is have all the operations. If you're in a solar project, a wind project, a hydro project, a biomass project, where everything's seasonal, leave all the operations month by month by month, but then switch it to a semi-annual after the COD, after the commercial operation. Okay, we can leave it all monthly and accumulate it. And I've got this exercise is going to show you how to do both of them, and it's going to work through a basic model. So if somebody thinks, you're being too advanced here, well, you don't have to worry about being so, watching everything. If you get the fundamental ideas of why these timelines are so important, number one, and then if you can kind of start working through these things, that's a big deal. And then I can start to do my own classes instead of wasting time with these people. Okay, so what I do instead of and I'm going to go ahead just because I've made a new generic macros file, I'm going to open my generic macros file. Okay, that's that. And it's new and improved. And I know what happens, especially the advanced people, they hate using this because they can go to the paintbrush so fast, or they can, go and to the home page and do their stuff, and they're so proud of that, or they can whiz around on the Excel. So now the way these exercises work, and I'm interrupting my book. I hate it. I'm going to go through these exercises, and what I do in these exercises, and you can look at either the renewable course right now or this one. I'm making one for tax equity to take us all the way from the beginning, all the way to the end. I'm going to make videos in between, and I'm not starting with a blank sheet anymore. And somebody complained about that, but who cares? I tried to explain. I'm not going to waste time putting all the inputs from scratch. I have other videos that do that. I suggest having an input C for the operations, a separate input C. And when we say input C, I hope you understand that these are constants. Okay, C is okay, constants. S, I suppose, is for time series. Or I would call C scalar. That's why I got confused. And this would be T for time series, but that's not the way we do it. How do we just set up different inputs? And why I would have to start typing every single input to explain this is simply beyond me. And then we're going to have look at all these yellow things. We're going to have a very simple month by month sheet, and I'm just introducing some issues with probabilistic analysis and P90s and P50s and all that, and then we're going to show you how to sum things across and move from a monthly to a yearly. That's easy. And then I'm going to go through this month by month analysis where we have everything continuing way to the end on a month by month by month basis, but we have to put a debt schedule in, and I've got something that says error, because if we assume that the debt is repaid on a month by month by month by month basis, that leads to problems. And I'm supposed to be monitoring how long we're taking. I've already taken 14 minutes. Well, I'm just on this one. I'm going to go and finish this one and then make a second video that works through how to set up this debt schedule, whatever you want, however you want to say it, and work through and go all the way to the equity IRR on both of these. Equity IRR, if we're going from month by month to semi-annual. So this is what I went through in my nightmare class, which actually the students were fantastic. I'm complaining about the people who wouldn't make a video. So the first thing is we have our different scenarios, and this is our maybe our base case. We've got some debt sizing cases, and putting these all together. And then what I always say, and maybe I've repeated this, we're going to use an index function. But over here, I'm going to do it twice. This is going to be an index function, and eventually we're going to take this whole column and copy it and paste it to this column. I'm not going to do that right now, but what we want to do is to be able to use those little spinner boxes to be able to be a little more creative than an overly structured model. So the first thing is we have a start date. That's our financial close date. That's our engagement dates. That's where we make silly promises that we won't be able to keep probably. And then we put, I'm going to use E date instead of EO month. Okay, some people might want to say use EO month, but okay, we're going to have the COD date start 11 months later. We start constructing in January, count on our fingers, and we get to 11 months, that's December. Now, if I did this right, okay, I'm going to use my generic macros. I put, because of this class, because of my 3 a.m. in the morning class, I put the thing in. So just press Shift Control R. And then we're going to get our after that, we'll get our end of project life. This is after, you notice I even say it's after the project life. So let's use eDate again, because I, not like most people, but fine, I like to keep everything at the first of the month so I don't get confused, because I'm pretty stupid. Obviously I am, for teaching these classes. Instead of months, I even put a range name for you so you could be happy about that. So we don't have any. Shift Control R again. And then I said, look, whenever you're going to make this and make a little more careful model, we're going to start with an index function. And we're going to select all of these. And then everything's going to work with a code number. Now, so far, and I even put a range name for that one, fine, whatever. So far, I didn't put a drop-down box, okay? And that's our date. Now, somebody started arguing with, oh, if you press Shift Control 3, you get the format. Shift Control 1, Shift Control 2, Shift Control 4, Shift Control 5, Shift Control 3. That's why I use those dates, other than they're logical, the day, month, year, okay? And then for now, I'm just going to make this equal. Now, in later, we might want to adjust all these. We might want to put the dates up and down, and then we can use this column, but keep this one. So later, if I change this and let's put in this one 12 months, so we'll go to the next month and whatever, 8 months, okay, we can change and get our different scenarios by copying and doing a little work in that last column. We can do fancier stuff. So that's the setup. And Kenny does this, and it's fast modeling, and it's all wonderful. And I totally agree with it. So let's do that again here, index. Okay, and I'm going to keep emphasizing and harping that you don't have to, showing off with a bunch of Excel functions. What a waste of time. Now I put some different, I just put some EBITDA here. And if people got all worked up and confused that I used EBITDA just to show that in the model we need EBITDA, we need CapEx. With EBITDA and CapEx, we can start really getting somewhere. And I put some different standard deviations in, or I left the standard deviation the same. Let's say this one had a 12% standard deviation. These would be very high standard deviations for a solar project. The typical kind of thing is, I don't know, about 8%, I think. Again, not correct, because it's all BS. And then we can use, we can say this is a P90, 99. This is the complement, and this is a P90, and I forgot to say that properly in the class, and some nice man corrected me on that. So we can use norm inverse. Okay, and when we use norm inverse, we put in a probability. This time I've got a P50 probability. And then I put in the mean, which is the P50. And then if I have the standard deviation as a percentage of the mean, which is the way it's often done, and it's nicely often done there, because you can then really compare different projects and see if you have reasonable numbers. Okay, and then so we have that, and that's our P50 case. But if we put our second case in, whoops. Oh, look at this. I wanted to change it here. Okay, then we, just a minute. What did I do? Oh, this one should be equal to this, and this one should be equal to this, and maybe this is the problem. Now we have a P95 case. If I put number 3, we have a P99 case. I just did it with any dot. Is that so bad that I just did it with that? And then I said, okay, well, some inputs, and for now we'll just look at, well, why don't I make a formatting? Control Alt C. Now, one of the things I've worked on is a reset button. And a lot of times you might have some format conditions, and you might want to delete those format conditions or not. And let me explain what I meant there just very quickly. So if I would like to highlight, let's just start highlighting here, highlighting which case we're using. Okay. And again, what I did here is when I went through this class, I thought, I can go through this quickly, because if people want to review it, they can just get it. Now, once I have this, then I go to home, and I go to conditional formatting, and I go to a new rule, and I never use those other things. And then you go to use a new rule, and you click on this and leave it with the F4. Leave it with them both fixed. And on this one, you press the F4 just once, because you want to lock in the fourth row, but leave the column flexible. And then you just go to the format, and we'll fill it. And now when I'm doing so now I'm on case 3. Of course, if I put case 1, we've got that. Okay. When we now when you make your generic macros, you don't want to clean. You're going to recolor everything, but you don't want to affect the conditional formatting. So we'll make a top. Let's make the top be 4. So I'm sorry, I'm going through everything in this set of videos. And I'm going to even apply a top color. We're going to use this. Later, we'll use some defaults. How's that? We don't have a sum column. And I think I put my columns in B. You can make them just go a few columns to the right. That's right. Over there is right. Okay. And there's our true false. And then we just, now you can see I've got a little timing. And sometimes there were some problems with, oh shit, what's going on now? Oh no. Okay, I had just put in a little thing and then I didn't check it, the typical kind of thing. This green means it comes from another sheet. I promise you I just fixed it, and I did not put the version that's on the website is totally fine. And remember, that version that's on the website is, I promise, is not going to screw you up anymore ever. And that's the second thing I did after this read PDF. Okay. And then, so now let's go. Geez. Now let's just do. Then I said, okay, we want to see how the input S works. And on the input S, I said, okay, I put a couple of different S curves in. And I didn't want people to sit here and type the percentages that have to add up to one. And then when they made this outline, they put S curves. Oh, you're going to learn S curves. What's the big deal? It's the percent you spend of the total, of course. But then you take and you link that to the curves. Now, when you set up your inputs, I suppose I should have done this, and I said, okay, we're going to make our timeline. We're going to see the production first. This is kind of like the production. And then we're going to put in some capex, and we're going to keep the financing separate from the construction. That's structuring for me. That's my one hero, my only hero in finance, Merton Miller. He was wonderful. I'm going to use this column over here. So if we change this one, so you know that now if I put a number 2 S curve in here and a 3 one, so if I change this obviously to 2, then it's going to take 2. And I think this issue that Kenny does, and do I now have my formulas off? You know, when you make your MOLA, I think, what did I do here? I should have 2. Oh, this I fixed. Okay, excuse me for that. What we're going to do is make a real little reset button where you copy this and paste this. So now let's put, and this is going to be a long video. Who cares? I don't care anymore. I'm so frustrated with all this crap. Now we have number 2, and we use our famous index again. Okay, and we select the cases, and we go up to our code number. So that's how we really, everything in the input S, in my opinion, should have a code number associated, or at least have an option for a code number. And then we can put this here, Shift Control P. If you waste your time, instead of going and making your own personal little macros, I'll do that in another one. This is just simply, you step on a formula, you turn it on, you do your formatting, all of that. And then here I made a new one, Shift Control V for Victor, and that just copies it. And I copied it all the way to the end. It doesn't cost you anything, and if you go to the end instead, so the auditors can't catch you on this one. And in this case, I said, we're going to talk about seasonality. And I said, okay, we're going to make this case, in the very first case, just so we don't confuse things too much, I'm going to make a, do I have a completely flat season? I don't even have a flat seasonality, do I? In this one, the one I had 99. But again, we go and we put our seasonality somewhere in this, and let's make sure. Now here, I'm pressing this key, okay, and I'm pressing Control and the square bracket to take me back. And here I made it a constant again, and I shouldn't. I'm right now just linking it again for the umpteenth time. You copy and paste this, and you just, every time you put a drop-down box to change this, then you copy and paste it again, and then you can have the best of all worlds and make a really nice kind of sensitivity analysis. So we go to our input S, and we've got our seasonality. Okay, and this one, okay, let's put a 5% here. And the reason I'm doing this seasonality, in case somebody else was complaining, you know, when you have 25 people and they all have to go through torture of 8 hours a day, they didn't have to start at 3 in the morning like I did. When you do that, okay, somebody's going to complain. It's a normal distribution, okay? Sorry about that, Ms. Person who, and then whoops, oh shoot. What did I just do here? Okay, Shift Control V. Okay, we have that. So now we're operating everything, and that's enough of putting the inputs. If you thought it was so important, then now let's just do another one. So this time let's put just 3 at the top. And I think that's enough. And let's go ahead and reset it. I'm going to not delete? Do you want to delete for? No, I don't want to delete them. Okay, because if I have some conditional formatting in there, and then when it runs, if you leave this one blank, it won't delete them, and then we'll put in our input S, and that's and like I've said many times, you see, it's a little bit different these days. Many times you do this so you don't waste time on all this coloring. You don't think that's the really important thing. Now, once we put our input C and input S, this is where I differ for Kenny. It's a major argument I have. He might hate me. He'll never ever watch a video of mine. I can assure you of that. The first thing I do is I made it all the way to 800 because it's monthly. Maybe that's too much. So the first thing I do is I put 1 here, and then I press Alt-EIS. Now, if you're from Germany, I'm trying to practice some German. Meine Deutschsprechen ist wirklich schwer. Ich bin ein alter Trottel. Okay, and then if you go all the way, now if you can't find EIS and want a shortcut, I in the new version, I even put some of these things. So Alt S, I said, well, Alt S will do the same thing. And if you have generic macros open, you can just press Alt S and type 800 and get it. Okay. And then we said, okay, well, let's put the where we're going to put the start of the period. Now, I almost did not need this because I left something else, and we're going to use this column. Okay, and these will of course be green. And the start of the period. Now, what I did here is I did this. I almost could have done this -1. Now you could say, oh, that's not perfectly structured. It's not perfectly structured. If you press F2, people can see what you're doing, and I don't see what the problem with this is. And since this is I don't know why I put this here. This is, I don't need this. Okay, excuse me for that. And then if we can use E-date or EO month. If it's just monthly, I'm just going to cheat and put 1. I think you're allowed to do that. And we better put -1 for the end of the period, Shift Control R, and we're there. Okay, and if I'm going too fast, I understand that maybe, if somebody's trying to type with you, they can be frustrated. So that's why I'm doing this. Our pre-COD flag, we put the COD date. Well, that's the financing part. Okay, and we have that being flexible. I hope I put an equal sign there. Okay, and then we can say, well, whenever you think about that, that's the COD. So pre-COD, and this is another thing, somebody yelled at me for this. I'm trying to explain every single formula, why we do it. Keeping a few timelines at the top is a big deal. You can look at that website and see, if you follow fast perfectly, you put the different flags in a different sheet. But for now, I'm just going to take this thing and put it less than when we start, just like that, and press F4. You can press F4 3 times, big deal. And then I put I love this, Shift Alternate F for flag, and it just puts this 1. And some wonderful man, Ali, he taught me how to do that with the copy and whatever, multiply. And then we can put in our operations date, and let's go back to the dates and get when the COD starts. And again, this is kind of like the next stage of your death, your life or your death. This is what you have on your gravestone when you die. And when you die, you're somewhere else. I'm not going to get into that. That's for sure. Okay, so we're not going to include that first day of your death in this, and we're going to put equal and we're going to I'm going to use the first of the month. That's of course a style thing that does not matter. I worked with somebody, some really nice man from Ukraine, who was taking a test. I can say, I think it was Deloitte or somebody, and they said, "Oh, you, what did they say? You put minuses instead of plus on the subtotals." Oh my God! And that was how they judged people. Oh my God! See, I'm really in a funny mood today. Sorry. So I put less than instead of less than or equal because that's the next stage of your life. And then if you press Shift Control R, true is equal to 1, false is equal to 0. You can use the if statement with this. And if you press Alt Shift alternate F, and of course I made a mistake here because it's got to be greater than. It's not going to be less than, it's got to be greater than. And I said, okay, I make a lot of mistakes on purpose, and that's one of them. And then because we're going to transfer this to an annual thing, let's put equal year. And for the year, just go up to the top. It doesn't matter because it's within 1 month. So, okay, we have our timeline. That's for our monthly timeline. Now, if you, these are complicated. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to split this into three different videos. For now, I'm just going to start with our P50, our P90, or whatever. I call this annual generation or EBITDA. I was just equating this just so people could see the fundamental idea of a project financing. You need to first, I think you first get EBITDA, and then you multiply this by the operation switch. Okay, there, good. Shift Control R. And then I said, let's put seasonality, and I purposely did this because in the input S, we have seasons that vary, seasonality that goes to period 12. And Kenny might say, oh, no, you can't put a monthly thing in a different one. For me, that's style. Now, this is just equal month. Is that okay? Some things I didn't type. I just showed. I could have typed it in. And then you type lookup. And I just tested this again just the other day, yesterday or the day before. If you use the entire line and if you set it up in a sensible manner where you put the month number here, and you don't have to do it like this, and then you use that index function we just showed you, okay? You press Shift Control R and you use lookup on the entire line. And I remember I had somebody from Bahrain, and her boss said, "Oh no, you're not allowed to do it like that." By the way, if you want a couple of decimals, you press Shift Control Q, and you don't waste time going up to that silly name box. You make all your own kind of things yourself. And then we have our seasonal EBITDA, okay? We just multiply that by the total annual EBITDA. And that's exactly how a solar project will work. So when I got yelled at for not, starting with a blank sheet, I thought, I am starting really with a blank sheet. And then I'm going to talk about inflation indexes. And this time, even though I already have it up here, this debate about whether you should repeat things or not, I'm going to put the annual inflation in here. Okay, and I'm going to take this and do exactly the same. And my big theme was, and somewhere up here, I put the inflation rate here. I mean, if people are upset that they didn't get to type in the inflation rate, what kind of shit is, okay? And so that varies by calendar year. The inflation rate is not affected by your little project, I think. That's affected by a lot. The Russians. I love, oh, whatever. And then we take this and we don't divide it by 12. You raise it to the 1 divided by the months, uh, and then subtract 1. Now, I can see how some people might complain about that. Oh, you didn't explain it. And the reason you don't just divide it by 12 when you have a monthly model is because if you take 10% and keep compounding every month, you're going to get more than 10%. Take 10 divided by 12, keep compounding, it's going to give you more than 10% at the end. Okay, in this case, we do it, and then I even did this, and I said, okay, for this one, then we're going to use and make a new index. Now, I see so many people putting all that in one single line. Make a new index. That's what transparency means. And then I have our seasonal EBITDA, and then we take our seasonal EBITDA and we multiply it by the let's multiply it by the inflation rate from the COD date. Just if that's how the PPA was working. I don't know. Okay, and that's now that I'm doing this, and I've gone 41 minutes, so I'm feeling already guilty about that. So I'm going to stop this video, and in that website, I'm gonna just say this is this is really almost a starting and an overview video, a little bit, where we just illustrate the importance, really, of the setup of timelines and some other issues. Am I there in that little thing? Okay, let's stop this.